2021 World Environment World Environment Day. This celebration with the theme Ecosystem Restoration is apt for the state. At the time that we believe that Cross River State with the largest rainforest, that rainforest is fast depleting. So we believe that we need to bring attention to our rainforest and ensure that it is being restored, ensure that our climate is brought back to the way we met it. So right now we're about to get into the field, pending when we return to this venue. The essence of getting into that field is to actually see practically the challenges that we are facing in the rainforest.
Wait, stay. Stay.
Yeah, it's picture time, oh. Everybody must stand through now. Madam, come on.
Stay in the background. The theme of this year's World Environment Day is ecosystem restoration. And on that note, and on behalf of all the members of Civil Society Network, I plant this tree for posterity, for future generations to benefit, for the ecology to be restored, and to the glory of God. And for me and me. Please, we can sing the song. I did the chorus there. Who is singing the song? World Environment Day. World Environment Day. Plant a tree today. Plant a tree today.
World Environment Day.
Ecosystem restoration.
Plant a tree.
Ecosystem restoration.
Plant a tree.
Ecosystem restoration.
There are 4 questions. Yes. Will the government enforce the law that mobilization should be have concrete pavements in the compound that is rather plant grasses? You can take that.
So the environment is linked, and before we develop any parcel of the environment, especially for urban areas like Calabar, there are processes that we need to pass through, and then government approves every plan, right? So it is possible that some agencies of government responsible for the approval of plans could consider the ways we can say, okay, let's build our houses and ensure that green areas does what? They exist. The state, Cross River State, for instance, is interested in what they call green city development. So it is, if we check our laws very well, I'm sure that we will find something in the law that encourages sustainable management. That, like someone says, we have a lot of good things in our laws, but implementation is weak. Your point is, when we put concrete everywhere, it encourages flood. That is very true. So in managing flood, there are ways that we need to encourage construction such that water, instead of running off, goes down. So if that is what you're saying, yeah, that is fine. We can just go ahead and see what policy issues we can just talk about to make sure that happens.
Well, let me add to that.
Yeah.
Within the city, it's not every house that will have enough space to plant, to have a garden. But one important thing that can be done and should be done, you have wetlands. The unfortunate thing today is that people are reclaiming those wetlands that should absorb the flood from the city. Like that area, if you are going to Akpabuyu, on both sides, that's wetland that shouldn't have been tampered with. You should conserve it to absorb the flood that comes from the city. And then we will not have overflooding in areas and all that. The problem will be reduced, because it's not everybody that will have enough land to, after building Yeah, you know the problem in Calabar land is a very big asset. They want to build every small space and all that. So I think apart from draining our environment, which should be done by the big guys that have the money and can have a space to do that, we should have wetlands that nobody should tamper with. No land vendor should go and sell land in wetland. Look at even this area on Jonathan Bypass. They have already reclaiming and building. That's a big problem. It shouldn't be. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think rather what the government should even do is to make a law and try to enforce it. Just in favor of the area the prof has spoken of. Because I know along the road to Akwabuyo, both sides of the road, it's supposed to be a kind of wetland and then just reserved for the purpose of taking water, excess water from the city. And I'm also aware that if you move to Calabar South, just behind the timber market, my friend there will know what I'm talking about. People are trying to reclaim that land, day in, day out. So if you go there, even some area, people are living on water. And as we had mentioned before, you know, in years to come, it might not be now, definitely there will be serious crises in those areas, whether we like it or not. Because water has a way of forcing themselves, whether we like it or not. It will happen one day. If we are lucky, it might not be during our generation. So rather what the government should do, instead of making a law against pavement, they should make a law that those channels must be left the way they are for the purpose of taking these excess waters from the city.
I think one of these NGOs on environment can take that up and campaign for conservation of the wetlands, wetland conservation. Thank you. Yes. No, exotic and replace with indigenous. Whether the exotic species don't sequester carbon.
You know, regeneration is not all about carbon. Even our crops will sequester carbon, but not like the natural system. I'll give you an example. An NGO planned to have a watershed management scheme and decided to plant species, water-loving species. And we were like, how can you plant these species to drain water from the streams and you are doing watershed management? No, that's what we are talking about. And if you are talking about landscape management, then you need to plant trees or species that are indigenous to that landscape. Nipa palm, for instance, Nipa palm was introduced, and our indigenous mangroves are at risk. There could be several examples like that. If you plant Malana anywhere, Malana is going to take over the landscape in very short time. And other crops or even trees cannot survive very well where they are. But Malana and teak also have their own specialized purposes. So the Forestry Commission is best depending on the purpose for which you are trying to do what? Regenerate. You can now decide whether you want to have monoculture or you want to restore the landscape as it was. And I think, thank you for asking that question. I know you know, but for the purposes of others who may not understand what we said, you asked that question, and I thank you for asking it.
Well, to add to that, planting of indigenous tree species. This year's title on World Environment Day is Restore the Ecosystem. And when you talk about the ecosystem, just like he explained, it's a very complex system. Biodiversity is very key. So monoculture is not the best. It's not the best. So if you bring exotic species like Melina, that's your plant, or teak, that's monoculture. So at least we should have areas where we may try to recreate, just as the the title of this year's World Environment Day says we should reimagine, recreate, and restore. Put back what was originally there. You know the importance of biodiversity in the Cross River National Park. So, whereas, just like he said, if you plan, just like you do your land use planning, areas where you plant these exotic species, because of their use in industries, they are fast growing and all that, you should also try to restore certain ecosystem so that the biodiversity will be there. Thank you.
There should be a balance, right? There is no way we can have forest and not use the forest. The truth is, the forest soil seems to be the richest soil, but as a matter of fact, it is not that rich. Because when you cut down the trees, the litters that fertilize the soils are no longer there. So it becomes shallow and the fertility does not last for long. What we are saying is, if I need to cultivate 1 hectare of land, why not limit myself to 1 hectare? I will now clear 5 hectares of land. There are communities that do that. At the end of the day, they don't cultivate the 4 hectares, it's just 1 hectare. But because the traditional land use pattern is that if you are the first to clear a virgin forest, then you own the entire land that you have cleared. People waste forests. So what we are saying is farm within the space that you need. Secondly, there are smarter ways of farming. You can even have a farm in less than a hectare of land and get greater yield compared to someone who is farming in 10 hectares. Right? So if you have sustainable land management,
You're really cute.